Hey guys, I recently had the privilege of being interviewed on the radio show, The Jonathan and Rick Show on Revolution Radio. My friend Crypt Rick enjoyed the conversation so much, he insisted that I come on his channel and we do an exclusive interview, just he and I. And he really wanted to pick my brain on my thoughts about animism and paganism and why connecting with nature is so essential to the spiritual journey. So this is that interview, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back, everybody. We are once again in the crypt. I'm so excited to be here, guys. As you know, I love doing these interviews. I love bringing on incredible guests and just having amazing discussions about a lot, what I call very important topics and topics that need to be discussed way more than they have been. At least in the circles that I hang, a lot of them, people aren't even looking at the stuff that I cover. So I'm hoping that by doing these interviews, I can actually get people to start looking into these topics that I cover and start maybe looking at things a little bit more broader. And I learned so much, as well as you guys do, from the interviews that I do and from the guests I bring on. I'm constantly learning and trying to find truth, find answers. That is what I've been on this journey for a lot of years now. And so it's very exciting for me when I get incredible guests on here to kind of just share their knowledge. I ask a lot of questions because, as I was just saying, I'm learning like all of you guys are. So I think that is a really cool way just to bring in my guest. We were on Revolution Radio, and we had him on last Saturday, Jonathan and I, for the Crypt, Rick, and Jonathan show. And it was an amazing interview. Talked about a lot of different aspects, and I had to get them on my show here because I have a lot of questions too. And so I figured, let's go ahead, bring them right on here. And that is what I'm going to go ahead and do. Welcome to the show. We got Logan Hart here, and he has the YouTube channel, The Wizard Factory. Welcome to the show, Logan.
Hey Rick, thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I've been excited all week for this discussion, as I was for the one that we did on Saturday, as I was saying with Jonathan. It was a great talk. It kind of got steered a little bit away in some areas that I was hoping to get more into what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm glad that's why I got you on here to kind of discuss these things, because I'm learning, as I was saying to people, as I go. I'm kind of like figuring things out, and I have a lot of questions, and I think that's a great thing to have, to want to be seeking this knowledge. And the one thing I was letting you know before we started recording is that I've always been extremely, from a young age, was drawn to nature. It was kind of my playground. It was where I hung out constantly. I was always out in nature, interacting with it and learning from it. And then as I got older and you get into high school and you do the thing that all other people do, you kind of get the job and kind of get involved in society. I lost that connection to nature for a lot of years. And as I got, older in my life, and then I finally got a house where we had a great big yard and stuff like that, I rediscovered this love for nature that I had. And I realized that it was almost a sickness that I had that I didn't realize that I had, because I was so disconnected. I was living in the city, wasn't really around nature. I mean, we had a couple little parks, but they weren't considered, I wouldn't call that nature. It was nature in a sense, but it was very limited. And me being introduced and starting to work on my property and be around nature, it was a soul sickness that I had that started to be replenished. It was an amazing thing. So I want to talk to you about that. And I guess the question to ask you, because we're going to be talking about paganism and animism, like that is a great topic. I think that kind of encompasses what I just mentioned. Can you let people know what paganism, animism is? And just, we can start from there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So these words are definitely very linked together, but they don't mean exactly the same thing. And I'm sure that everyone has maybe a different kind of take on this. Everyone's a little bit different. But for me, first of all, we'll start with animism. Animism, it comes from the Latin animus, which has multiple meanings, but essentially it's like life force energy, as well as breath, which makes sense. Like we associate breath with life, breathing your last breath, breathing life into something. This is the essential, like chi, or, like that kind of primordial life force energy. And so animism is like a worldview, a perspective, to see that everything has this animus energy, this anima. And just seeing everything as consciousness, as divine, right? That's
Hmm.
kind of like the baseline for that. And so I kind of view personally paganism as an extension of this worldview. So you start with even like with the Hermetic principles, the first one is mentalism. You start with the mindset and then you go from there. So what I see paganism as is practical animism.
Right.
It's the mindset applied, and it's your personal journey with that, and that's really going to be the kind of core focus of this talk, I think,
Hmm.
is what it comes down to is it's about your direct relationship with, you could call it nature, the universe, reality, whatever. It's all the same thing, right?
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
it's what is, what exists, and it's the spiritual realm which we've chosen to manifest, to incarnate into, and this is why we're here, to build that direct relationship. So the antithesis of that really is like religion, because that's, don't you don't need to have a direct relationship. You just follow everything in this book. You read, well, this is what this says that reality is or is not,
Hmm.
and that's what you take it on faith. It's faith based, but not just any faith. It's blind faith, because it's all about negating your senses, negating your personal experience. Well, you don't need to go out there and experience the world. All the truth is just right here, right? Like
Yep.
just trust in this, and that's all you need. And it's putting your consciousness and putting your spirituality into a box.
Absolutely. And then that's what I learned, Logan, too, by looking. When I started looking into this, I quickly learned that, and as I'm sure other people will even realize if they start looking into it, is that it is definitely, when you look into the paganism and animism, it comes with this baggage from organized religions. Like they've really hijacked it, I guess is a good way. Like, because I think when we talk about, as soon as I think we bring up paganism and what we're talking about, I know that people are going to have an image in their mind of what they think it is. And so I'm
Mhm.
glad that you're kind of like letting people know what it is and maybe let them know what it isn't, because I definitely think people have the wrong impression of what it is. And it's by design. I know it is.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's not a religion. That's the best way to approach it, is to keep a very pure and simplistic view on this, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be complicated. It's just personal spirituality is one way you could look at it. And in that direct personal experience and relationship with the reality field that we're in. And the best way to observe that is in nature, because, back before man was so-called civilized, nature was all that there was. We
That's
were
true.
we were actually living in nature. We weren't isolated from it. We weren't separated or, insulated from it. We lived within it, and it was, it had played a role in everything that we did, from needing to gather wood to create a fire or build a shelter, or make weapons to defend yourself against animals and things like this. Like, nature was a part of every thought process.
Right.
Anything you wanted to do was a part of that. So when I say nature, it doesn't just mean like the nature that you think of, like when you go camping, like birds and trees and stuff. It
Right.
is that too, but really what it is it's just reality. When we talk about these laws of nature, we're not talking about laws that only apply when you go out into the forest.
A
We're
lot of the
talking
jungle
about,
is what they try to sell people, kind of.
exactly, yes, and that's a big psyop right there. So what the laws of nature are universal laws. They apply in every situation, in all places, in all times, in all locations, universally. So it's about learning the laws of nature, the ways of nature, and that's all about, like, cause and effect, right? Free will and your choices create your experience. So as a spiritual being who came here to have experiences, that's how you do. You make choices that create different outcomes that lead you down this fork, or this part of the path. In a
Hmm.
nutshell, that's what we're talking about here. So
That's a great explanation for it too. And I'm just, it's so true what you're saying. I'm glad that you said it doesn't mean necessarily just nature that you see outside when you go out into the forest, because I think that's what a lot of people think too. And I always say it's like the nature of your inner soul, of who you are. Like
Mm,
I think of the, your true nature, I guess, to
yeah,
kind of put it in.
it's the
That's what I
same word for a reason.
Right, exactly. And so when people look into paganism, and when I start looking into it, you hear a lot. And I wanted you to cover this because I am building up to other questions, but I want to kind of build up a foundation.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at this, there's a lot of story of the gods and that, what is your take on the gods and that, and the reason the stories are there, like the whole reason for this? Because I think a lot of people are gonna like look into this, and then they're gonna run into a wall of different gods and all of these different things. And so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, you have to keep this very pure and simplistic viewpoint. Don't overcomplicate it. And and what I so as to your question about the gods, I see that as allegorical
Hmm.
for natural forces, natural energies, these archetypes, these energetic forces that are at play. And this is not only an easier way to kind of explain things, but also there's just something about stories that the human mind really just gets without even needing explanation. You could hear a story and you just kind of get the meaning almost at a subconscious level. I think that's what it is. Stories have the ability to penetrate the pretense of beliefs and ego and all this kind of stuff, and it penetrates right down into a deeper part of our minds, into the subconscious and unconscious mind.
Hmm.
And so that's why stories are great for teaching children, right? Bedtime stories, fables, these kind of things. It's all the same thing. It's teaching principles, it's teaching morals that are based in natural law. So the first mistake you could make is looking at it like from a literal perspective.
Right.
It's not literal. There's no like actual Thor guy with a hammer. These are just symbols, and I think this is really important to truly understand paganism, is understanding that it's very much tied to allegorical and symbolic thinking,
Right.
because just think of, the nature of our reality. Everything is like fractals, right?
Hmm.
You look at like the map of the human brain, the neurons, and then you see a bolt of lightning, and you see a tree, and you see a river system, and they all have the same patterns.
Yep.
So they're almost like all allegories for each other, because they're all pointing to the same thing. Everything is the same, but in a different way. It's like a truth about the universe. So that's why paganism is particularly useful, because it's kind of like taking these patterns, these archetypes, these stories, and putting them in a useful way that's practical, that you can actually use to apply to your own understanding of the way things work
Hmm.
and how to get the best outcomes, especially in the realm of true morality, true right and wrong actions.
That makes a lot of sense. And the reason I brought that up is because, for one, once again, they hijack everything. That's what really frustrates me. And I think of all the movies out there where, you see the Thor movies and all of that, and they really put an emphasis. And I hope people see the allegories in that. I do when I see them. I kind of see what they're trying to slip in, but I think a lot of other people just see it as an action movie. I think that people kind of get hung up on that. So I think it's really cool that you're kind of bringing like that. These are stories and allegories, and I agree with you, because I think storytelling is a great way, because I also think it's, for me, it's like reading a book. I have a picture in my mind when I hear a story, or I'm reading a book. I kind of got this movie going on in my mind. It's creating it, and I think that helps people remember it, so I can see the power of these stories. And I can also see why they kind of got to hide them in different ways, and kind of put little things in there, just because I don't think they can give you all the truth. They got to, at one time, you couldn't really just give this information away. It was kind of in symbology and hidden in a lot of ways. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I definitely see that the roots of paganism is kind of the same as the roots of the occult. It
Mm-hmm.
really all came from the same thing. They were mystery traditions that predated, um, institutional religion,
Right.
and that came along later and really obscured and occulted this information. It was a lot more common to normal people because that was just part of their spirituality. Religion came along, said, "Oh, that's all evil. You don't need it's either nonsense or you don't need to mess with that. Here, take our word for truth instead and ignore all that stuff."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the layperson became very ignorant to deeper truths about natural law, the nature of themselves and the nature of reality and the laws that govern it.
Right.
And then just kind of um, putting all of that aside or burying it, suppressing it, in replaced by this proxy spirituality through religion, through dogma, through just
Right.
blind faith, blind obedience, and frankly subjugation of yourself, of your true sovereignty, putting yourself under an authority of a tyrannical, Jehovah or whatever you might have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so I would think that because you hear throughout history that they, the slaughtering of pagans and witches, and they're do you think that that was done? That was the beginning to they had to break our connection to nature.
A
That's their
hundred
goal.
percent. That's exactly what it was. They Because that understanding, that knowledge is a link to our power. When you understand nature and your part in it, you
Mm-hmm.
understand your power and your worth. And that's what they don't want. That's what they're trying to destroy. So they had to eradicate people. And this is why, especially like the Norse people,
Mm-hmm.
were some of the last to fall because they fought so hard against it because they were so empowered. They were so sovereign. They didn't bend their knee, and that's why they've twisted the history and demonized them, made them into this just violent
Yeah, like savages. That's yeah.
barbarians,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And there's some truth to the story when it comes to the later stages of that, but largely, and I'm not excusing any kind of crimes regardless,
Right.
but it's more understandable when people have been so traumatized, so violated for centuries and generations. That's going to radicalize them, and then they're going to be pretty ruthless and be frankly violent and hostile towards their aggressors.
Right.
But in the same way that you know Israel points to Palestine and say, "Oh, look at all the, their kids are bombing our tanks and this," and like, yeah, that's happening, but why are they so militarized? Why are they
Right.
so hostile? Because you've been traumatizing and terrorizing them for however long.
Yep.
It's understandable.
That's a key question. Why are they like that? I just that stuck right out when you said that. Like, and that's such an important question. I don't think people ask like why. People say like why? What's going like the world is the way it is, and I always say, well, why? Like, how did we get here? There's reasons why we got here, and I love the way that you're kind of shaping that for us because it's so true. And then I see the divide that they make. Like it's always this divide, get people divided and then taint the knowledge. They always give you like they're always tainting the well is what I call it. And it's
Yeah.
so hard to get to the truth. And I love the aspect of it as I was telling people, you and others I've told getting back to nature was so it really was a soul sickness, and I can't say that enough because and I didn't even realize I had it, Logan, until I was back out in nature. I think we once you break that sever and you're away from it for a while, you don't even you're kind of just I think you're just like an NPC, you're robotic, you're not even really
Yeah.
conscious of it. But when you get introduced to it again, like I did, it was so drastic. And then I started, as crazy as this sounds, when I'm out in my yard, I'm learning from nature.
Yeah.
I see it everywhere, and when you start to see it, it's such an amazing teacher.
It is the one true teacher, and this is actually where all occult knowledge comes from. It's not like there was just these wizards like making shit up and writing them in these tomes and putting an eye on the cover, and now it's an occult book. It all came from nature. All knowledge of the universe, all these secrets and magic and all this kind of stuff, it all came from nature. And it's only through that direct observation, like you're talking about, that you can actually gain that. That's why they've, demonized even nature itself.
Yep.
And you got people that are so like domesticated that they see nature as hostile, and they feel nice and safe in their apartment and, driving their car or whatever. But the nature out there sounds scary, and it's like full of bugs and it's icky, and why would I want to go out there when I have everything I need here? And
Yep.
it's just you've got people cutting themselves off from that power and from that wisdom that they can, in that connection, that soul connection to, again, we are nature. Like, even
Exactly.
to see yourself as separate from nature is a mind sickness. So of course they wanted to create that mindset to see you separate as it, and then demonize that. Even in the Christian faith, and I remember, and I was raised Christian,
Me
so
too.
I've seen this firsthand, and even said some of this myself, not knowing any better, but seeing like they demonize paganism and witchcraft and all this kind of stuff as evil, because it's somehow venerating the creation rather than the creator.
It's all
And
the
that's
same.
it's all the same, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the whole point. That's what animism is you're seeing God is everything. It's the all.
That's so true, and that you're right what you said, because I was raised Christian too. I was I had 8 years of schooling actually, of Catholic school, and let me tell you, I did not fit in at all. I was all, as people know that have ever listened to any of my shows, I've talked about it on occasion, that I just did not fit in with that whole religion thing.
Yeah.
I asked too many questions, and I would drive them crazy, and I was always in trouble because I was questioning. And at that time, I was still very much connected to nature. I was still out in nature. It wasn't until I got into like the high school days that I lost that connection. And then, like as I said, life happened, and then I lost that connection. And I've
Yeah.
learned so much from it. And you're right that they demonize it and nature. And I see what we're doing to nature, and it's so unnatural. And I mean, I'm sure we could branch off in so many areas, but I have covered a lot on even the farming and how we grow our food. It's so unnatural, this big farming and what we're doing to animals, and it's just such an unnatural state for the world to be in. And
Right.
we're it's like we're doing everything to destroy it.
Yeah, well, when I think of natural in the context that you're using it here now, I mean, this word can go so many
It
different
can, yeah.
directions, but in this particular context, what that means is something more akin to permaculture.
Right.
It's an ecology, it's an ecosystem where everything is in balance with each
Hmm.
other. Everything is kind of just finding its own place and its own boundaries, and there's ebbs and flows to it, right? You got a growth of this plant over here, and more of these wolves are breeding, and this kind of thing is like everything is constantly in ebb and flow, and in a like an
Ebb and flow. Yep. Yep.
interrelationship. It's connected. That's the point. Now when you have things like what you're talking about, this monocrop factory farming, there is no balance. There is no connection. It's purely exploitative, and it's sterile, right?
Great
You
word.
got one crop, you kill everything else, and just make everything this one thing. There is no ecosystem to that, and it
Absolutely.
it leaches and destroys the soil. And then you eventually you can't even grow stuff there anymore because you've just absolutely destroyed it, because that's not in alignment with these natural principles.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I try to tell people. I try to tell them that there's this ebb and flow, that there's this motion to everything and this energy transference, and we're
Yes.
breaking that by doing what we're doing in so many ways. I mean, like I said, this conversation could go 100 different directions,
Yeah.
but we're kind of it's in the same. I think it's really in the same. Like I just think of energy transference and how we're transferring energy back and forth. And when you kind of do what humanity is doing, we're breaking that energy flow, if that makes any sense.
Oh
And
yeah. So you're reminding me of there's a rune called Gebo. It looks like two sticks crossed, and
Gebo.
that's what that's all about is exchange of energy, the flow, and the like the back and forth of things. And this is a great example because the runes were from the Norse pagan culture,
Hmm.
and they all the runes are somehow connected to nature and the lessons that it has to have. Hagalage is like hailstorm, and that's showing how it's basically like challenge, but not seeing it as a negative thing, but in that it's going to stir things up, it's going to renew things, it's going to destroy in order to create. And then what happens when the hail uh, melts? It turns into water
Hmm.
that actually nourishes things for new growth to come in. So it's only like from a Western, maybe kind of Christianized mindset would see a rune like that and think that, oh, that's a bad rune. There are no bad runes. There's no bad tarot cards. That's you're in your victim mindset.
Right.
A pagan is going to see all challenges an opportunity for growth. They see destruction and chaos as what gives way to new life and creation. It's all connected, you see? Like
Yeah.
it's the circle, it's all ebbs and flows connected together.
That makes so much sense. I was going to ask you that. I was actually going to ask you that if in paganism they actually look at anything in nature as a negative, or is it always just part of the cycle and then positivity comes out of it?
Yes,
Very interesting. That is very interesting because I was going to ask you that. That was my next question as you were explaining. I'm like, I wonder,
perfect.
like, do they look at that as an anything negative, or is it just always just a transference of energy and that's building on this, like that circle that we're talking about, that circle of life, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to think of I'm sorry, I might be butchering things, guys, but I'm trying here.
No, that's fine. I mean, if anything, that was a thing, a, a more pure concept, and then it got kind of this weird stigma because of like the Lion King and like
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. But no, there's something to that for sure.
makes a lot of sense. They like I said, they poison everything. And then what I find crazy too is that we're like when you I'm really big and around, like I said, working around my yard and being in nature. I it just grounds me. It I don't know. It just rejuvenates me, and I learned so much. And then working with like plants and stuff like that is such a an important thing too. I think we have to get back to that, especially because the way that the Western medicine is. We've gotten away from nature in that aspect. Another thing that we've gotten away from that I'm starting to rediscover, and what I've really discovered, Logan, is that everything in my neighborhood that they call a weed is actually like a healing plant.
Medicinal plants, yes.
Absolutely, everything they call a weed has amazing
Yeah.
medicinal properties.
Like nettles and
Everything,
mullein and things like that.
dandelion,
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, it's so funny. And
yeah.
it's indicative of the sick-minded culture. And I mean, I really do personally see the Abrahamic mindset, especially in the West. It's apparent in all these different things, even things like monocrops and stuff. It's,
Hmm.
monotheism, monoculture. It's the same monovirus. I call it the mono mind virus.
Yeah.
It's all systemic because it's like I said, it's coming down into the very deep parts of the brain. So for me, even coming out of Christianity, it took me a long time to even realize, whoa, I've still got like these Christian programs running, even though I've in name denounced that as a faith or as a label for myself. I still am holding some of these programs and operating from those mindsets. Things like, money is evil or
Hmm.
the root of all evil, and that you have to be like this lowly carpenter in order to be spiritual. And if you're wealthy, or, this kind of thing, or like that you have to just go around helping the sick and the hungry and the homeless, and instead of like seeing every person as sovereign. It's
Right.
like the pagan would say, hey, have you ever stopped to think that the more you're giving your money away to these homeless people, you might be enabling them to just stay weak and disempowered and not actually do anything to change the trajectory of their life?
Yeah, that you say that to the Christian people, they're going to take that like that'll be a thorn in the ass.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to hear that, but I hear you. I can't agree more. Like you don't that is a great way to look at it, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Wow.
not to say like bad things don't happen. Sure, like people get down in their luck, they have shitty state, they lose their house, their job, whatever, and that's why some people are homeless. But you know, the bigger picture is largely if they're choosing to stay that way and they've been homeless for years and they say that they're not happy, but they don't do anything to change it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's again, you got to be personal responsibility is key to spirituality. This is exactly why I also reject the archetype of Christ, because at least in the biblical literal sense of it, this idea that this guy wants to die for me, no thank you. Because
Right.
I want to earn that for myself. I don't want to die for anyone else and take and rob them of their that gift. It's a gift to die unto yourself, to
Right.
sacrifice yourself to get that knowledge, to get that growth. You know, I would never insult someone else to say that I'm going to take that away from them by martyring myself for them, and I damn sure won't let anybody do that for me.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's all part of this journey, right? And that's the way I look at it, and that's a key part of it too.
Right.
I know a lot of people are that are probably even listening, and I was in that camp for a long time. You're scared. People are so scared of death. Like it's just one of these things that people don't want to think about. They don't want to discuss. And I'm totally opposite now. I just know that this is, to me, this may sound crazy, but I always say to people like, to me, death, it's like to me it's going to be a good feeling, and let me explain why I say this, because people probably think I'm crazy, but to me it's like I've finished something. Like to me it's the end. I mean, I started on this journey, and now I'm, when you die you finished it. You and I'm thinking, I'm hoping that I came here to learn what I was supposed to learn, however you want to look at that, and that it's a great feeling to just finish something. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Oh, it definitely does. I'm kind of getting this flash of an allegory that I can use where think in your life, you take the concept of a movie, right? I see film as kind of a modern day mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as old myths from, you know, different cultures of ancient times, but it's just done in a modern form. But the purpose and the intent is the same. It's teaching morals and wisdom through stories that you can kind of identify with different characters and see the choices that they make in the movie, and then you see how that plays out and the
Mm-hmm.
movie's over. Well, you could kind of like apply this to the death concept that you're talking about, where first of all, if you watch a movie, the movie's over, you don't see that as the end, right? Life goes on. The movie ended,
Mm-hmm.
but your life goes on. You're doing other things. Maybe you'll watch another movie later. Maybe you'll watch the same movie again because you liked it that much.
Yep.
That's what our souls are doing. We're just choosing to incarnate in these different stories, to play these different characters, to make different choices, to create different experiences spiritually, and get the lessons that come from that. And then we move on. So the pagan mindset also doesn't have the same fear of death because you don't see death as the end. It's just the transition into the next chapter, the next cycle, and the next story. You're excited for the next, you know, adventure. Who am I going to be? What kind of life am I going to live?
So
You know?
do pagans then believe in reincarnation? Do they believe?
Yes.
So you keep coming back?
Yeah. Yeah. Your
Because I
soul
think
is
of like
persistent.
Valhalla and stuff. You hear like their goal is to get to Valhalla, and I'm just going by what I've seen in movies and stuff. So guys, please forgive me, but I think it's important to talk about because I like that's what I hear. Like, and you see that in documentaries too. That these warriors, they wanted to go live like that. That's their goal, to go to Valhalla. That's not what we're talking about, correct? Or am I way off?
Well, so to my understanding, and I could be off on this, but it's a continual process of study for me.
Exactly. Me too.
But Valhalla is kind of like a different version of heaven, I guess
Okay.
you could say. Uh, I, it's a good question to pose. Is that a permanent state?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But what I do know is that everyone knows about Valhalla because that's, you know, in the movies and, you know, that's kind of the cliche, which
Yep.
I get that. But few people know that there's also another place called Helheim,
I've heard that, but I don't know what it is.
Well, it's kind of like, well, it's even in the name. It's like hell, but not in a hell like like a Christian would think of hell as like burning fire and brimstone. It's actually a place between lives. It's not permanent, by the way, and it's not a punishment. It's just a place for you to go after you've lived and died to go and reflect your life that you lived. And
Oh,
whether you
okay.
made good choices or bad choices, um, Helheim is seen over by a goddess called Mother Hela.
Hmm.
And if you see a picture of her, she's depicted as half beautiful woman, half corpse. And what that's signifying is she will appear to you based on how you lived. So if you were a total degenerate, immoral piece of trash, then she's going to look like a scary corpse. And there will be a sort of a retribution, but not being inflicted on you, but you upon yourself. You're going to feel the guilt. You're going to really sit with the pain and the sadness of the harm that you caused in that life. That's for you. That's on you, for you, by you, if that
Hmm.
makes
It
sense.
does.
That's a very different mindset than the Christian, where you don't have any power. You're kind of just subject to the whims of this God up in the sky, and the devil's tricking you. And it's all externalizing your power in every way possible.
Right.
With the pagan mindset, you never give that away. It's always for you. If you have victory, it's because of you. If you fail, it's because of your own choices, but you can always correct that. You can come back, try again, and do better next time.
That's so powerful.
And
Wow.
it's so much more in alignment with
It is.
actual nature, is seeing everything as connected, as continuous, rather than this static idea of death being permanent, of this is the end, because where's the growth in that? From the Christian perspective, say you make mistakes in life, you earn your place in hell. Well, then you're just going to be there for eternity. There's no more opportunity to learn. There's no more opportunity to grow and to change, which is what nature is all about, is in constant flux and
Yep.
changing of forms.
It's not that rigid. I've always said that about nature. It's not that when I thought of like, and that was the thing I would argue about too, is hell. It's like, okay, so if you do a bad thing, there's no like, you can't make up for this. Like you're sentenced to eternity in hell. You're gonna burn in a lake of fire. I had a problem with that. Even at a young age, I was like, I just don't, I can't see the God. You can call it I call it the creator. Call it whatever you want. God. I'm not gonna argue names with you. I've been down that road. I don't want to go down it again with anyone. But
Yeah.
whatever you call the creator, I'm with you. And I would say I just can never see the creator being that rigid, like to the point where there's like, nope, you're done. You messed up. I always think this nature is you're always learning and you can go back and learn again. I really like the way that you mentioned that. And so in paganism, I was just kind of wondering as you were saying, like we were talking about Valhalla. I wonder if since pagans believe in reincarnation, if you keep coming back and once you've got, I guess, all the lessons, maybe then you go to Valhalla, their form of heaven.
No, now that I'm thinking about it, like I said, don't quote me on this, but I do think that Valhalla is also just a pit stop.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
I think, because think about it, you're a true warrior. It's never done, right? They want to go up there, they're going to feast, they're going to revel in the joys of the victory. But then there's always new lands to go and explore, right? Think of a Viking on a ship. Like you come home, make love to your women, you drink meat and eat fine food, but after a while you're going to get a little stir
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
You're
time to
ready to
go.
get back out there and
Yeah.
find new adventures. So I'm pretty sure that that is also not a permanent state, but it's just kind of like if you die in battle, which this is also something to keep in mind. It's
Okay.
not literal, right? It could be literal if you're actually fighting for something, of value in life and you die in battle, literally. That
Hmm.
could also apply. But what it really is getting at is spiritual battle. You're fighting for truth, for goodness, for your higher self, and you're willing to die unto yourself. That means putting to death the aspects of your identity, your ego, that aren't actually you. That's what you're cutting off the limbs of and dismembering. and like that sacrifice. That's what it truly means, and that's how you get your way to Valhalla,
That
because
makes a lot of
it's a
sense.
spiritual victory.
Absolutely, to me, people spirituality. I've been saying this is a spiritual war for so long. I feel like a broken record, Logan, when I keep saying that to people. But I think they really need to hear that and get it through
It's
their
still
head.
true.
It's still true. That's what I tell them. I'm like, and I've had even people so bold to say, "Well, I don't believe in spirituality like that." And I'm like, "Well, you may not believe in it, but that's what's going on. This is a spiritual war that's going on, and people are looking for these external answers and saviors. And it always, all my conversations, Logan, are so interesting because it always seems to boil, when you boil it all down, it gets back to doing the work on yourself.
Yeah.
That's where it always ends up. These conversations are amazing, but it always seems to come back to that you have to do this work on yourself. And you were kind of even just hinting at that now, like that it's that work that has to be done on ourselves that people are not, most people, I shouldn't say all, most people are not willing to do.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, and and your choices as well,
Hmm.
because that's what that's how the work shows up. Because that doing that work on yourself is a choice,
Yep.
and ignoring it is a choice, or giving your power away. All these things. So I definitely, I mean, from a spiritual perspective, your power, your sovereignty is that it all comes down to that
Hmm.
responsibility for yourself and the choices that you're making and what you're creating through that process. That's the whole spiritual experience in a nutshell.
It
And
is.
that's what paganism is about. Because again, from the Christian perspective, it takes all that away. You're too wicked and weak and powerless to save yourself. You need something else to come and save you.
Hmm.
And then and then the devil is responsible for tempting you. It's like everything is all geared towards outsourcing that
Yep.
responsibility instead of walking the fucking path for yourself, sacrificing for yourself, dying in battle for yourself, and that not being a selfish thing. Because Christians is all about selflessness, right?
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with being generous. I'm not demonizing those things, but when you have this lowly, just pauper, image of what spirituality looks like, and that if you're just taking credit for your victories, or you're just doing things for the sake of like your own benefit, that makes you a bad person. That's nonsense.
I agree. Yeah, and I always had the problem too where I had two problems. One, you had to pay because you were just saying that you would always be like kind of have to go and look to an external, savior or somebody to kind of get you in touch with the
Right.
creator. And I was like, I always had a problem that you had to give money to anybody for this. Like you needed this person, and they had like the ear of the creator, and you had to go through them and give them money or whatever they were asking for. And I always had a problem. Or you had to even go to a specific building to talk to the creator. I was always like, why can't I can talk to the creator outside? Like why can't I can talk to him anywhere I want? I can talk to him about and to be truthful, I feel most connected out when I'm out in nature. I feel most close to the creator. And that's just maybe that's just me. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. For me, when I'm outside in nature, I feel connected to something higher.
Yeah.
I just feel it. And I have a problem when you have to go to a certain building, you have to pay a certain person, you have to listen, like follow everything they tell you to do. I always had a problem with that.
Yeah,
Oh,
nature is the true church, is the true
agreed.
sanctuary. It's where you go to commune with the divine. It's not in a building. It's definitely not giving money to these, you know,
I don't even know what
charlatans
demons. I
at
don't know what to call
best,
them.
and outright pedophile freaks at worst. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like, we can't deny that that's a huge issue going on within not just Catholic, but Protestant, um, what do you call them? Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's. Yeah,
These
you
are
name them.
all cults that have, sexual slavery and all kinds of weird stuff going on. And you have to ask yourself, like, what is it about that whole belief system that is creating, it's not just a coincidence. It's running that mind virus that's coming out when when you have this sickness. It's going to come out one way or another, right?
Yep.
So it's like if you're being abused, you're accepting that, you're just taking it year after year after year, eventually it's going to break, and then you have something like Joker, like Joaquin Phoenix, if you've
Yeah,
ever seen that.
absolutely.
It's like eventually it's going to come out, but in such a big way because you didn't deal with it in a healthy way before, and
Right.
now it's going to come out like, whoa, that was crazy.
I think of people like that too that are dealing with their inner traumas. When you say that, I just think of also people not doing that, and then it manifests in so many different negative ways. If you're not doing the
Right.
shadow work, is what the term people are using now. So I'll go with it. It makes sense. It's a good term, so I'll use it. Doing the shadow work on themselves, and if you're not doing that work, as we're talking about, that spirituality on yourself, and learning about yourself and fixing these things that we all have. We all have these traumas, whether they're big or small. It's great what you're saying. I thought of that because people that don't deal with these problems that manifest, like you were saying, it just kind of comes out. It's gonna come out, whether it's for
Yeah.
good or bad.
And a lot of the trauma is from gaslighting,
Oh yeah,
telling you from the day you can even understand words, you're a sinner, you're wretched, you're evil. And salvation from Christ is the only way to make you whole and like a worthy human being whatsoever. And also, your body is wrong, so we're going to cut off a piece of your
hmm,
sexual organ with the day you're born, because you were born again. It's like a medical original sin
yeah,
there. That's a sexual trauma. And then tell you that you're wrong for having sexual urges. And this is just, again, demonizing nature,
yep,
the nature of your instincts and everything. And you're suppressing all of these things, and you're swallowing that gaslighting year after year after year. It creates some serious psychosis, dissociative disorders, all kinds of weird shit. So it makes sense why you see, sexual repression leading to weird outlets like pedophilia and other things like that, for example.
exactly. And that constant divide they keep. I always see that they're always dividing, and that's what drives me crazy too. Is that people can't see what we're talking about, and then so we're always in a state of divide and arguing and arguing with ourselves, arguing with the external sources. And I keep bringing it back to nature because I think, like you said, it's the greatest teacher that I can't think of no better teacher. And even all the things I think about that man thinks they've created, and technically, yes, they with their hands they did, but it also, this knowledge comes from nature. Do you know what I mean by that? Like I see, like
Oh
when you
yeah,
see an
like an
airplane, you see
airplane
a
just
bird.
mimics,
Yeah,
yeah, mixes the lift techniques of a bird.
yeah, like I see that all over what we're creating, but it's not really. Are we creating it, or is it something we've learned from nature? I mean, that's a good way to put it.
That's the question right there. And again, just taking it back to what I said earlier about all occult knowledge is the same thing. No one just came up with that or invented it. We discovered it through direct experience.
Hmm.
And so then they've hijacked that knowledge, kept it to themselves, and then demonized you for trying to have direct interface and just say, "Oh no, like this is the truth. This is
Right.
what you need to just believe."
Absolutely, and I'm just want keeping an eye on the time. I thank you so much, Logan, for your time. This is fascinating to me. I could talk to you
It's a
for
great
hours.
topic, man.
It really is, and it's powerful, and I think it needs to be talked about more. I think people need to hear this, and that's why I'm glad that we're doing this. Um, One thing I've been looking into, a lot of people know, is the plant medicine aspect of it. That I want to get your thoughts, and where that plays in, even in a paganism, is working with like these psychotropic, drugs like these hallucinogenics and that. Your thoughts on that? Because it's something that's been calling to me and for a while now. Kind of dabbled in it, but I want to wait till it's actually nice out. I don't. It's like I said, it's winter here and now. I'm in a snowbank. Not. I want to wait till spring or summer when the weather's better, and I'm going to start really. I have this need that for some reason, something is telling me that I have to do this, and I just want to get your thoughts on it and the power of it and how that fits into paganism. Like, just your thoughts on working with these medicines.
Totally. I definitely think that it's nothing to be dismissed or, cast aside. And again, in this context of this conversation, plant medicines, plant teachers, and shamanism
Mm-hmm.
were 100% went hand in hand with pagan, practice. This was just as common as like, just how you would deal with a cold or something is like if you have emotional sickness, you need healing.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they would do. It was, it's like a sponge or a scrubber, for your soul, for your inner emotional landscape. That's what I think that they are very useful for doing, is basically purging trapped energy in the form of emotions and memories and experiences and things. I've definitely experimented with a good range, um, mostly DMT through like crystal, smoking form,
Right. Yep.
as well as psilocybin mushrooms. And I did a retreat that was 2 consecutive nights of ayahuasca ceremony as well. So
Wow. That's so powerful to me. I think that it's really important. That's a great way that you put it, like scrubbing. I just think it, like a lot of people have fear of it, but I think it's because they fear what is going on inside them. I think when you start working with these medicines, which is I think is a good thing. I mean, I'd rather bring it to the light and deal with it than keep burying it and pushing it down like most people want to do. But I get their
yeah,
fear of it. I get it because they're scared of what's in them, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, think about it. If you're afraid of it, then wouldn't you be more afraid that it's inside you instead of
Right.
actually trying to release it and let it go and heal from it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way I look at it too. But a lot of people don't. They're like, I don't want to mess with that. Like it's like, and I get it, but I'm like you. I'm like you. You have to bring you. That's the only way you're going to get rid of it is by dealing
Right.
with it.
It's playing an effect in everything you do. If you have unresolved traumas, it's poisoning every action you take, every thought that you have, the way you see the world. And this is exactly how mind control works, is it exploits those wounds as an entry point for their programs that's making you
Right.
behave a certain way, that's supporting and upholding the system, the matrix. This is exactly how it operates. So you have a responsibility to heal that, and that's going to make you immune from all their bullshit. So if you are at least awake to the system that is, and that it's not in your best interest, and it's trying to control and exploit you for their gains, then that should be all you need to know to understand, like, healing yourself is how you fix that, and how you make yourself immune to their mind manipulation
Right.
tactics.
That's so true, and like that's why I keep trying. And it's a tough road to try to talk to people. I found about this, like when I start talking about natural law and objective morality, principles. Just right. Simple thing is right and wrong. People don't. That's what worries me, Logan. Is that when you ask people, even Mark Passio did it. He said, like, try an experiment. Go out and talk to people on the street, and just ask them to give you a definition of what a right is. They can't do it. I was shocked. I'm like, I'm going to take that challenge. And I went out. I remember when I went out and asked people, and I got so many different answers, but nobody gave me the right one. And that's the problem, is that people don't know about objective morality. They don't know about natural law, and if they do have heard the terms, it always seems to be poisoned. Like I said, you talk natural law, people automatically say to me, the law of the jungle. Like it's on almost automatic. So their
Right.
mind virus is working. It's working on people.
Absolutely. And I think largely people don't want to accept the reality of objective morality, because if that's true, that means they're actually responsible for their
Right.
decisions and how they're affecting the world.
Yep.
So it's like in their best interest to preserve their ego. Well, it's much easier if they just say, "Oh, well, that doesn't exist. That's all made up." Then that's their sad attempt at abdicating that responsibility from themselves.
That's what it is. Once again, it's like passing the buck kind of thing, right? Like
Yep.
anything but personal responsibility. Once people hear that it does fall on them. They people don't like that. Like I guess they really don't like it when you start throwing accountability at them, and it, but it's just a funny state that people are in, and I see the mind control that they're doing on people. When you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's just constant. They're barraging it in every aspect of our lives. They've really infiltrated everything, and once again it comes back to we have to do this work on ourselves, and that's the journey that we have to take. That a lot of people are scared to take. They're not aware of it. Um, I want to wrap. Like I want to kind of end the show on a positive because we kind of talked about some things here that are the problems. Can you? What are some of the solutions you think, Logan? Like how do people start getting down the right path? Like, I mean, I guess it's a pretty broad question, but maybe we can focus in a little bit
Oh,
more as we go.
I've got a good answer for this.
Awesome.
This is something I wanted to share kind of at the beginning, but it's good that it's coming up now because this leads perfectly into my answer. The way that I view paganism and animism is basically spiritual anarchy. It's it's your true and sovereign form without being shoved into a box of any kind. And it's about your life, your freedom to make choices and discover what truth is for yourself. So the solution is don't put yourself in a box. Free yourself from any sort of dogmatic belief system. Anything that someone's telling you is the truth and that you can't observe for yourself, you know, don't subscribe to that. Sure, some things aren't knowable. Some things might be more faith-based, but on those things, like, I don't know, the flat Earth is always a funny.
That's a big one right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That one's
So okay,
huge.
so because you don't have the ability to go into space and see for yourself, then there's lots of ways that you could kind of argue both sides. And personally, I've looked into it. I've looked at both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and I've landed more on the side of globe. Like that's just what I think makes the most sense. And there's some pretty simple scientific methods that you can prove, that is the case. However, I'm never going to be, even on something like that, I'm never going to be so rigid to pretend that I know definitively something if I can't personally observe it.
I'm
And
the
that
same way.
one simple thing would radically change most people's perception of things if they could just let go of needing, everybody has to have an opinion. And most people, they're just talking out their ass about stuff. They have no clue what they're talking about just because they're afraid of saying the words, I don't know. Like, what's so bad about that?
Yeah.
So that would be, to put it all in a nutshell, that would be my takeaway is free yourself of dogmatic belief systems that are trying to impose some form of truth on you that you can't verify. And if that's the case, don't have such a strong conviction about it. At least just remain neutral and just say, I don't know. And the things that you've directly experienced, well, you should definitely put those at a higher weight than what someone else is telling you that truth is, if that's in conflict with it.
I mean, that's a great answer. I think the same way too. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know. There really isn't, and that's what kind of scares me too is how people they lock onto a belief or something that they don't really know for themselves, but they defend it like to the death. And they're really rigid and they won't. I have always tried to keep an open mind about everything. Like I'm very much like you said. I want to find out for myself. And then the flat Earth is a great example because people say they ask me all the time, "Do you think the Earth's flat?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm not. I've never been up there high enough to see myself. I don't know. I can only go by what makes sense and stuff. But I like the fact that you're saying like try to figure it out for yourself and what you can find out for yourself,
Right.
and don't
Never
have
put
this.
someone else's word above your own if it's
Right.
something that you can directly observe.
Right, and people are just so they'll have a hill that they will die on from this just a belief, and I'm just like wow, and it kind of makes sense why we're in the mess that we're in a lot of ways because that's the I see the divide that we're in, and they just keep us in this constant state of fighting and arguing about things, and it's just like wow, it's okay to say you don't know.
Right.
It's
It's
so
like
simple.
the system in every way is pissing in your face and telling you it's raining.
Yep.
And instead of actually seeing what's happening, because you have direct experience of that, you're just like, oh yeah, because it's just raining. Like you're just swallowing that. No pun intended.
Abs- Absolutely. Well, just to wrap it up, Logan, let anyone know where they can find your work. What anything that you have going on coming up in the future. The floor is yours to just let everybody know where they can find, because you're doing incredible stuff. I really enjoy the content that you're putting out. I'm learning so much. As you can tell, it led me here. So let everybody know where they can find your work and whatever else you want people to know.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, man. I'm pretty busy these days, pretty active. I just so just first things first, the Wizard Factory is my main spirituality philosophy channel. So you can go to thewizardfactory.com, find all my relevant links.
Perfect.
I've got some merch and things like that, contact, whatever. Or you just find me on YouTube, the Wizard Factory channel on YouTube. That's the main place. I'm also on Odyssey as well. But if you just find the link tree, maybe we can put that in the description
Absolutely.
below.
Yep. I'll make sure I
It'll
put
have
links
all that
everywhere.
stuff there. But you can also find me on social media. I post just like personal stuff as well on Facebook, just little tidbits to try to get you thinking and, see a different perspective or whatever. And then I just had Mark Passio on my channel, which that
Amazing.
episode dropped today, talking about human nature, which really, really great episode. I love how that turned out. And then tomorrow I'll be live on his show. So really excited about that as well. We're going to be talking about truth.
Oh, amazing. Great topics, too. I'm definitely going to have to check out the one drop today and definitely tomorrow as well. Thank you so much, Logan. You're welcome back anytime, my friend. I'm sure next time I have you on, I'm going to have even more questions, but this was a great starting point, I think, for people to kind of even start looking into paganism and animism and kind of getting their head around it, just learning a little bit what it is and what it isn't. So I want to thank you so much, man, for being here, and keep up the great work. You're doing great things, and I'm really excited to see what you come up with in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Rick, and thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Me too. Have a great night, and I'll keep in touch, my friend.
You got it.
All right. Peace,
Bye,
bro.
everyone.
Well, there we have it, my friends. I always say it at the end of every interview that I do that, wow, what an incredible man, what an incredible guest. And I'm so happy that he could take the time to come and speak to us about this paganism, animism. I mean, this is an incredible topic. And it really, when I started listening to his work and looking into this, it, it just resonated with me, if that makes sense, because as I was saying at the beginning, I've always been very connected to nature, or at least I was from an early age. And I lost that as I got older. But I just remember from the youngest of age, I was always out learning in nature. It was kind of, that was my church, it was my playground, and it's where I learned so much, and then was robbed of that as I got older. I kind of like, I ended up moving to the city kind of thing. I was living in an apartment. There was really no connection to nature at all. And then as I got older and then finally moved back to a place where I have, like, property basically, and I have the ability to go out into my yard and be around, I have a lot of nature around where I live. It's like I'm surrounded by it. My whole backyard is so alive with life that it drives my neighbors crazy, because I got so much going on in my backyard, because I make sure that I attract all of these. I like feeding the birds and feeding the animals that are coming around, and working on my gardens, and that's very active in the summer around my yard. And as I was saying at the beginning, it was definitely a sickness I didn't even realize I had until I went back and started working around in nature, and working just as I was working outside in my yard, I was also working on my inner self, if that makes sense. It was allowing me to connect to who I truly was and who I forgot that I was. And it's just such a powerful thing. And I just hope people that are listening to this realize that is the key. It's like Logan was saying, and I was saying, you have to do the work on yourself. I'll keep saying that because it's what's missing. People are so busy looking to other outside of themselves for the answers, and I will keep saying that a lot of the answers are truly inside of you. And when you connect with your true self and you connect with the creator and nature, it all starts working together, and you'll see that the more that you're around it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to have Logan back on again if he will come on in the future, because I will have a ton more questions for him, I'm sure. And so thank you guys so much for once again joining me. I got lots of amazing people lined up for future episodes. I want to keep these amazing interviews going and just keep bringing incredible people on here to have these discussions. I really do learn a lot and enjoy these conversations, and I hope you do, and you're learning from them as well. At least I hope it's sparking some curiosity about what's going on out in the world, what's going on within yourself. So I hope that's my goal anyways, guys. And just to wrap it up here, I just want to let everybody know about what is coming up very soon, June 24th and the 25th, 2023. It will be Funnel 3, guys, and this is going to be the Trivium, Knowledge, Understanding, Wisdom. I will keep you guys posted as it gets closer to the date. We have amazing speakers that are going to be part of this, so I'm really looking forward to being a part of this, and I will keep you guys posted as it gets closer who the guest will be. But it's going to be an incredible couple days. There's going to be so much knowledge there. Please, guys, put that on your calendar. Make sure you're there to see it. Check it out, and I will keep you guys posted. Just want to let you guys know about that, because very exciting. I'm very excited about this. I was part of Funnel 2, and there was so many incredible speakers on there and doing presentations, and this is going to be a really amazing Funnel 3, guys. So make sure you put it on your calendar and be ready to check it out. And there we go. Actually, there we go. Now I got to go back over to here. There we go. All right, guys. So thank you once again for joining me. I will be back very soon with another amazing guest. We're going to be covering some great topics here. If you are a fan of radio, do not fear. I got you covered. If you like radio, you like that format, you just like listening while you're working around the house, or you got your headset on, don't forget that I am also at revolution.radio every Saturday night. I have my amazing co-host, Jonathan Wright. We have the Crypt, Rick, and Jonathan show. We are in Studio B, and that is from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then you also got my show, Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. I'm in Studio A on Monday nights from 6 to 8 p.m., also Eastern Standard Time. Check it out, guys. It's going to be a lot of great stuff going on there, too. I have guests that I bring on there. We cover a lot of other different topics there, doing the same thing with my co-host, Jonathan, on our Saturday show. So, hey, check it out, guys. I still am a big fan of radio. I was raised on radio, so what can I say? I love the whole format, and I just enjoy talking to a lot of incredible people on there. So check it out, guys. Like I said, revolution.radio. So stay safe, guys. I will be back soon. Take care of each other. Love yourself. And remember, you are the greatest, and nobody is better at being you than you.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.